Are you looking to take your martial arts knowledge to the next level? You've come to the right place. Welcome to the Martial Hour, podcasting out of Los Angeles, California, for your martial arts fix. It's martial arts instructor and self-defense expert, Robert Torres.
Right. Kiyoshi, Richard Herbster, how are you today?
Doing good.
Welcome to the podcast, man. I really appreciate you being here and being a part of it. I wanted to have you on here specifically because, you know, you've got a unique history in your martial arts training, and I just wanted to be able to share it with the world and tell everybody about your story. So you know, what got you in?
No choice. It was so my father owns Rising Sun Karate, and there was it's just always been a part of my life. So there's nothing more. There was a time, I think, where I wanted to take a break, I think, as a kid, and my dad sat down with me and goes, no, this is what we do. So there was no other option besides training.
Yeah. I when I was coming up, I think it was a yellow belt when you first came through the dojo, and you were barely walking.
Yeah.
I know you don't have a lot of memories of that time, probably, but I have a few memories of you, and what was that like? Like, what was your earliest experience of you being in the dojo and just, you know, taking your first steps there?
Yeah, I remember being in the dojo, even the old dojo, and like on the rug, and playing around there when nobody was in there, and I remember the seats in the office and everything, like playing with like my Power Ranger toys, and no one was in the building. And then I remember when the new dojo was being built, and John Book was there, and he was framing the entire thing it was a complete empty building almost, and watching it kind of get built up to where it is today. It's been great.
Yeah, the old dojo has a lot of great memories there. Do you what's your first memory of actually training on the mat or training on the rug? Was it on the mat or was it on the rug? I think it was on the mat.
Probably on the rug. Oh, that's where I remember training. I remember my dad saying, he kind of made it exclusive. I had to be like 4 or 5 years old. He was like, you can't train until you're 4 or 5. You can't train. But I remember also people passing me. I was a white belt for a year. I was a yellow belt for a year. I was an orange belt for a year. And I'd see people that were just ass students, and they'd get tips. And they were yellow belts, they were orange belts, and I was still a white belt. And you don't realize at the time it was definitely for the better, but that was one of the memories, I think, probably as a white belt.
Yeah, and being a white belt for a year, I know why your dad did it, and I know you now at this point, you know, you're an adult now and you realize it, but you know, it's when you're younger, it's just tougher to handle and tougher to grasp. Mm-hmm. What made you really stick in with that, especially, you know, being held back so long?
I competed a lot. I think that's what helped it, because that would help break up the monotony of like classes. The tip system's great too, because you're getting tips, and back then too we used to have the stars, so you get like stars, you get tips, and it was constant like rewards. But the competing definitely was the big thing for me. I was competing in, I think as a kid we did it like Red Dragon, Gary Alexander, BKG. We were like 3, and then once I was about 8 or so, we started competing in some of the like bigger local tournaments, and you know, competing 4, 5, 6, 7 times a year definitely breaks, you know, every 2 months you're training for something new.
Right.
So that was it.
That's awesome. So I remember when you were training, as you were coming up through the ranks, you also did like different sports and things like that. So like how do you manage that? Because a lot of people, they fall into, like, they start martial arts and then they just kind of move into a different field, and they say they don't have enough time, or I can't dedicate enough time to train. And I always tell them, look, I give you it as a good example, you know, and I talk about that and tell everybody what your experience was and how that's helped, how martial arts helped you.
Yeah, there's always time for everything. I mean, sometimes you have to sacrifice. That's the big thing, though. It's whether I remember being in my grandmother's pool, and all my cousins were playing, and I had football practice, and it was in the middle of the summer in August. It would be like 105 degrees out, and getting yanked out of the pool when you're 8 years old. You just want to swim all day, and my dad said, "You have an obligation to play football for the year. You made the obligation, and there's if you want to play next year, you don't have to play, but you committed to it, so you have to finish out what you started. So I remember getting dressed, stopping what I was doing, and just sacrificing, time with my family to go, play football. Or days that I was at the dojo, I had to train. So it was, get done with school, I'd come home, I'd finish my homework, go to the dojo, and whether it was even if it wasn't my class, I was taking at least another class, and then I'd get dressed, I'd eat right before football, and then I'd go right to football. So those were busy days, though. As a kid, you're waking up, going to school 7 o'clock, go to school till 3, 4 o'clock, doing homework, training for an hour, getting ready and eating pretty much on the fly, and then football practice from 6 to 8. You come home, and you're getting ready for bed. So every day was packed. But now looking back at it, I always have time. I always feel like, though, because my days have always been busy.
Yeah. Yeah, well, especially, do you think that prepared you for, your future?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I do stuff crazy, I guess, now, looking back at it. I was in medical school. I always wanted to make sure I was still going to the gym. I was still have time to, finish things I wanted to do, whether it was, gym stuff or cooking. So I used to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning and get to school by 5 o'clock in the morning, but I'd be done by 2 or 3 studying. And then I'd have plenty of time to cook and go to the gym and be done. And everyone would be like, how'd you do that? Well, I made time for it by just sacrificing a little bit of sleep in the morning and getting everything done.
Yeah, I think a lot of people use time as an excuse. Oh, I don't have enough time. But I always tell people, if you really want to do something, you're going to make the time to do it and make
Absolutely.
it happen. So that's good. I admire you for that, man. You put a lot of work and effort into it, and it shows now. Talk to us about that step that you made from Q rank, which is under black belt, to black belt rank. How was that for you? I know it was probably different for you coming from, a dojo school owner son. Talk to me about that.
Mm-hmm. So I was 10 years old when I got my black belt. And I think the big jump for me was also the competing stuff, because I was competing with other brown belts. And when you jump up to the black belts, you're competing with guys that are top notch. The skill level, the competition level definitely, jumps up as well. So that was the big jump for me. I think that also gives you a big boost of confidence as well. Knowing that you made, one of the biggest steps in martial arts is getting your black belt. So it gives you more confidence, I think, inside and outside of the dojo.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree. Competition and just from moving from the Q ranks to the black belt ranks, it's a rude awakening.
Oh yeah.
So you're a doctor.
I am.
That's awesome. How'd you do it? I know there's steps and all these classes you have to take and medical school and all that. Tell us about the decision of pursuing that type of career and then what it's taken you so far.
So that also goes back to my dad as well. I was in kindergarten, and before I walked in one day, he goes, "What do you want to be?" And I looked at him. I said, "I don't know." He goes, "Why are you going to school then?" He wanted a purpose for everything. There was always there's no reason to do something unless you know what you want to do. And I said, "Okay, I'll let you know." And I came back to him. I told him I wanted to be a doctor. And we actually found one of those papers recently. I was at my grandmother's house. I opened up one of the books, and I think it was 6 years old, and it says, "What do you want to do when you grow up?" I said, "I want to be a doctor." So I've always wanted to do it. But the steps, it's all high school stuff, just preparing for SATs, getting into college. I was a chemistry major in the honors program at TCNJ, had a minor in business management, and did some research in inorganic chemistry. Throughout high school and undergrad, every summer I would spend 3 months with a doctor as well, shadowing, so I had a lot of shadowing experience. Neurology, cardiology, oral surgery, physical medicine, rehabilitation, interventional pain. I did a lot of stuff those summers too. I did a lot of teaching and tutoring as well to just kind of build my resume up as well. And then you take the MCATs, and then medical school is another 4 years on top of it. So, after high school, I was another 8 years of just straight school, basically. Now I'm in my residency, so it's still not completely over, but getting there at least.
Yeah, it's a long road, man. A lot of work. Do you think, do you see some similarities with what you've gone through as far as your career goes and what you've experienced in the martial arts. And
Absolutely.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, so there's two things. One, it's retention, because there's 100 white belts. How many of them really make it to black belt? And when you start college, everybody wants to be a doctor until they get into like organic chemistry. Then a couple people move on. Take the MCATs, a couple people move away, and then you're only left with 4 or 5 maybe people that originally said that, I want to be a doctor, and all of a sudden, I think chemistry teacher sounds pretty good, or I'll go into research, or they switch majors completely. But in the martial arts, you get the same thing, though. All these guys want to be black belts when they first start, and you just see them, I like football, or make an excuse here and there, and then they kind of drop out from it.
So that perseverance you're talking about that you learned as a martial artist really helped carry you and push you through medical school.
Absolutely. Yeah, even medical school too. Medical school, there's a lot of people that drop out and change like fields all of a sudden. Yeah. Perseverance, though, it's all lack of will.
Yeah. Yeah, that for a lot of us in the martial arts industry, as school owners or like in any industry, I think this last year tested your will and your perseverance. So it's been pretty crazy. So at the onset of COVID, when it first started happening, and I'm going to talk to you now and like as your doctor, on the onset of COVID, what were your initial, like, what did you think about it first off?
I honestly thought it was going to, when I first heard about it, I said, it's definitely going to spread, but how bad? And I thought it was not as severe as what the news was saying at first. I thought it was, you're going to get, sneeze, cough, sore throat, flu-like symptoms and get over it. And I didn't expect it to, last as long as it did. I didn't expect it to be as severe as it was. I was in 4th year of medical school when it happened. I remember my rotation even got canceled. They said, don't come in, stay home. We don't know what it's going to be like. There hasn't been anything like this. We don't know what to do yet. So, they were giving different medications. They were trying everything. So it was a shot in the dark and see, what stuck, basically. So it was definitely scary, I know, for a lot of the doctors, too, because they had no idea what to do for it.
Yeah. Yeah, I can imagine it. Tell us about the hospitals and what that experience was like. I know you were working at that time. You were in the hospital, right?
Mm-hmm. So they were getting short of masks. That was the big thing, and they call it PPE, the protective equipment. I don't know exactly what it stands for, but there were times where we were reusing masks. People were bringing bandanas in just to make sure that their faces were getting covered. You'd have to rewear your gowns because there wasn't enough gowns. A lot of the cleaning supplies were getting short, so you had to kind of be careful of what you were using. That was the big thing at first, though, was shortage of everything.
That's hard to believe because you think hospital, is well prepared for things like this, and you think that there's they have plenty of stuff to go around because they're the cleanest place. Like, what's the cleanest place? You're gonna think it's got to be the hospital, and they're gonna be prepared for this kind of stuff.
Yeah. It was a mess. No one was prepared for it, that's for sure. I remember taking a mask too, and I got yelled at from other doctors saying, like, we don't have enough. Like, you need to, but my safety I thought was first, so I had to do what I had to do, but.
Yeah. Well, thanks for being there, and thanks for helping all the people that you have. It's, there's a lot of people who, suffered from COVID, and it's thanks to people like you who step up and who are there for us. So we really appreciate it. So because of COVID, do you think that most martial arts schools took the proper necessary like steps to be able to keep their students safe and things like that, or do you think it was just like I don't know, what's your opinion as far as like COVID and martial arts schools? Do you think we did enough? Do you think we could have done more? Or
I think that it was really on a school by school basis, because it's not like healthcare where there's a standard of healthcare and everybody does the same thing. So each school adapted, I think, differently. I know my jiu-jitsu school was not really wearing as many masks because it's pretty tough to roll. and they were open pretty early, but I know they shut down for a long time too. They didn't really offer like the online stuff that I know my dad did. So we were doing online training, live Zoom classes. We went through all of the curriculum, 3-4 times over at least with just the online training. We came up with something called the Driveway Dojo, where we would, one day me and my dad were sitting there thinking, how else could we help our students better? Because online training, you can only get so much. You need sometimes live feedback and that interaction, and you can kind of pick up some of the nuances that you don't pick up from watching somebody through a lens. So we were doing the Driveway Dojo, so we were driving and seeing 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 people a day. Take a couple hours driving we would try to just section people off from where they lived. But that's about as best as you could do, though, with what the regulations were, especially with, New Jersey. And then once the time came that people came in, we did the social distancing, the masks, and just kind of went by the books after that. And I think that's all we could do. We were cleaning the mats, 5 days, 5 times a day between each class. So there's nothing really else you could do beyond that, I think. But one thing I think that we did learn, we and my dad were talking about on some of the drives, were how far some of these students were coming. You don't get a good understanding because, we're there. Why aren't they on time sometimes? Or, all this kid's, coming to class. But you don't realize it's like a 30-minute commute to and from, sometimes worse with traffic. You don't realize like how, well off or, how not so well off some of these students are, coming and spending their hard-earned money to train. So it was definitely a new and I think a good learning experience for us as well.
Yeah, that's cool. It was eye-opening for me too, because I was inspired to do that as well with my students when Shihan told me that you guys were doing that. So that was awesome. What do you think the future of martial arts is going to be like due to what we experienced last year?
I think it's going to be in person. I don't think there'll be much change. I think that maybe like sanitary conditions might just be a little bit better because people may be a bit more mindful of it. But I think it'll be able to impact more people because maybe somebody who doesn't have access to a dojo, under 30 minutes can now have access to a dojo because of the online training. And I don't even remember Zoom before COVID, to be honest. I don't remember all these things, these chats and the interactions that we have that we did develop through COVID. Even healthcare's got it too now. We can do a lot more improved telemedicine visits because of COVID. Nice. So, you don't have to come back for a follow-up visit sometimes. You can just go on the phone, tell your symptoms or lack thereof, and it kind of fixes it on its own. You don't have to make the drive, and makes people kind of follow up a little bit better as well, to be honest. So I think that will kind of carry on into martial arts too. So
nice. Going back to your competition, what's your favorite memory of competition?
My favorite memory? Probably two, I think. One was competing in Caesar's Palace. I love that whole experience. It was a long weekend. Weeks, a lot of Korean food. And just seeing how good the competition was just from the bottom up, White belts competing that looked really, really sharp. And they definitely could be more than white belts, but they were kind of going on that slow, steady path. And I liked that. Though that was refreshing seeing just good quality martial arts from the top down. That was one of my favorites, and my other favorite was probably my first tournament. I think I was a yellow belt or white belt or a yellow belt. I was only about 5 years old, and me and my dad, before all the tournaments that we ever went to, he would do like a private lesson with me. We'd spend about an hour in the dojo just going over like really, really fine details that you don't go through in class. And we went through kata 4, I think I was going to do. We went through kata 4 probably about 100 times. Details, three-quarter posture, rising block position, stances, feet position, the whole 9 yards. And I went to the tournament and I made up my own kata. So all that time and effort was for nothing, I guess, but I got second place from it.
That's awesome. And I think I remember that tournament. What was the name of the kata that you did? Did you call it something or was it just...
Yep, kata 88. I made it up.
That's pretty awesome, man.
We have a video of it. It had its own pattern. It had orange belt blocks. It was a sharp kata.
Yeah, I'd like to see that video again at some point this week while I'm here. What about as a black belt? What has been your favorite favorite experience since becoming a black belt?
Teaching. I mean, I think that's the best part of it, because you can only get so much from training. Kids even ask you these questions that you have to think about sometimes, and it gives you new perspectives on your training as well. Just, placements, punching, stances, kata, all the nuances that sometimes you just kind of pass over because there's so much information, especially in our curriculum, that you kind of just don't even think about it. It's just part of the kata at times. And when they ask you questions, you kind of go, I'm going to think about that for a second. We're going to ask somebody. And you come back at it. We had a kid training since he was a little ranger. I think he was only 3 or 4 years old, and he just tested for his black belt. I remember teaching all of his little ranger classes and seeing him progress too. That was nice, But definitely the teaching aspect is something that you definitely don't do enough of as a Q, probably because you don't have the experience, but that was by far my favorite memory.
Yeah. When you started teaching, though, were you ever thrown in there without experience, or did you kind of just watch your senior black belts teach for a while, or how was that?
So because I was so young when I got my black belt, I wasn't teaching classes, like full classes. I'd break off students, help them one-on-one. Usually like the more challenging students or students who just got their rank, that I'd have to show them the first 4 moves of a kata or new blocks or new kicks, and then they'd get brought back into the group by the end of class. So that was, for me, one of the better ways to go into teaching, because you're not getting a full load. You can kind of work out the kinks a little bit. And especially with those challenging students make the instructors that much better. So when you only start with challenging students, when you get, some of the more skilled ones, it's definitely a little easier to teach that way then. But yeah, that was the gradual move on, I think. I was probably teaching my own classes with my own students probably halfway as a Nidon. I was probably 13 or 14, and I've always been small too, so it probably didn't look the best for parents, seeing a little 11 or 12-year-old kid out there teaching. But once I was, a little bit bigger, looked a little bit older, I think it was easier for my dad as well to, feel more comfortable to put me out there.
Yeah, I think you had a lot of confidence when you were teaching too, so that kind of showed as well. Mm-hmm. And so I think what parents really see, they see this little kid who's, in their eyes is a little kid, but in actuality on the inside, they're a lot more mature, and they'll see that and they'll notice that, and they'll probably feel a lot more comfortable after watching you for a while.
Absolutely.
So that I'm sure helped out a lot too.
Yeah, I guess a 12-year-old with 8 years of experience at the time, that was a lot of time, and not many, I think, black belts had that much time even under their belt. So it was, for me, it's definitely second nature to teach and to kind of explain something that I've always been doing. And I think it definitely is tougher for some of the guys that are coming up now that, got their black belts. It's, 5 years or so, but just all of a sudden get thrown into the mix of teaching now. It's a slow process. Some people just don't know how to do it. Some people are just naturals at it, but it's a whole new learning experience, being able to command a class, keeping everyone's attention, knowing what you're going to teach, not sitting there and waiting and thinking, what am I going to do next? It's constant on your feet, movement, yelling, teaching, screaming, corrections, the whole 9 yards.
Yeah. Could you go into some of the, because I know we talked about it, but it was super brief. Could you go into some of the polarities of some not polarities, but the similarities of martial arts and your career? Because I know a lot of things are similar, and the things that I've learned in the martial arts, even though I do have a martial arts career, in success, it's the things that I learned coming up as a martial artist totally apply.
Absolutely.
And I want to know what out of those principles, what have you applied and how?
So I guess there's a few. So first is self-discipline. And I think that's the biggest thing that most of the medical students, the medical professionals definitely have a lot of. And the ones that are more exceptional have even a better display of self-discipline, taking the time, being selfless, and kind of, sitting down if you need to for 10, 12 hours at a time to study. It's not an easy task to just sit there for 12 hours reading texts. But, martial arts has taught me self-discipline, and that's, I'm aware I have a test, I'm aware I have an exam, or I'm aware I need to understand this before seeing people. So that was one of the big things that I didn't need to learn to study, or to be a better doctor. That was one of them. Another one was being able to talk to patients is very similar to talking to students, because most students come up to you, they always had a problem. It wasn't ever like, oh, I've been doing really good. Do you want to see, how good I'm doing? It's, I'm really struggling with this kata. I know I'm not getting this, class. I'm having a tough time with this instructor. I'm having a tough time at school. So you have to talk to them on a very personal note and be able to convey your message to them. And I noticed that now, because we go through this whole medical training, but you don't really get people training. And one thing I think I excel in is being able to talk to patients, and being able to connect with them very quickly, and also being able to talk to them that, seeming like I'm a superior, so I'll talk to them, with more, lay person jargon, I guess you'd call it. But the martial arts and definitely teaching, that's been one way I definitely learned that skill. I guess the last thing would be that you're always learning. In medicine, there's new drugs, there's new protocols, there's new standards every day that you're constantly learning. And it's the same thing in the martial arts. I'm a 6th degree black belt in one style, but I'm going through Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu now as a white belt, and especially starting it, it's a whole new world. So again, you're constantly learning. I'm constantly asking questions now, even to you. We were here the other night, and I was like, I had to pick your brain for 5-10 minutes just to, I'm constantly trying to sharpen my skills in martial arts. I'm constantly trying to sharpen my skills in medicine, just to be the best version of yourself that you can be.
Yeah, awesome. Yeah, that's it. When I started jiu-jitsu, it was similar. I was happy because I had no responsibility whatsoever, and I could just learn, you know what I mean, and just make myself better. So that's awesome. And I'm glad that you're broadening, improving yourself that way.
Absolutely.
So that's awesome. You are adopted.
Yes.
Right. Tell us a little bit about that and your experience, and if you ever, like, any of your experiences, if you ever had any bad experience, and tell us about your positive experiences, and if you think it has changed, if you think it makes a difference at all.
So I was adopted when I was 4 months old. I was born in Seoul, South Korea, and I have no obviously I have no memories of anything from Korea. Hard times, maybe sometimes, like as a kid, sometimes, just people, oh, why is your last name Herbster? You don't look like a Herbster. I get that now once in a while too. Like, you get the double take of, like, when they look at your name badge and they, look at you like, it doesn't look like the last name. Other than that, really nothing though. I think that the martial arts has helped though too, because I was always able to defend myself. I don't think, you look in a group of people and you go, oh, that black belt there, I want to mess with him. So I think that prevented a lot of it. But advantages wise, I don't know if there's necessarily advantages or disadvantages. I always looked at it as if it was a gift. I was chosen to be a part of this family. It was a choice for my mom and dad to make. So I never felt like out of place or anything like that, if that was like the feeling. But yeah, I think that's been it though for the most part. And I guess as a kid though too, I didn't really eat like a lot of Korean food. I never really had an interest in it. It just wasn't really a part like of kind of what I did. I guess we don't have, I guess, a lot of access to Korean food in that matter. But I guess as an adult now, I appreciate it a little bit more. So I do try to like eat a little bit more Korean food. Try to learn how to make some of it a bit. So that's been maybe the only change I guess I've had, as a kid versus now as an adult.
Yeah. Do you tell us, because I want to know what your life was like having your father as like your live-in sensei, right? Because you literally saw your dad at the dojo and then at home. Was there a separation? Was it all one? Was it how was that? And how was your relationship with him, as you were coming up? Were you ever like upset with him about anything?
We did a pretty good job, I think, actually, of separating everything. So in the dojo at the time, he was Master Herbster when I was a kid. Then he would, we always kept titles the same way. Even now, like he won't go like, Richard, come over here. It's always Renshi, Kiyoshi. He always keeps the titles. I think that helps partition a lot of what we do. I mean, the respect as a father, respect as a, the elder, the senior in karate. I don't think that really changes, because he's still the same person, you know what I mean? So we've always had that mutual respect. I don't think we really kept anything, like, once, we like to keep everything. Once you go in the dojo, everything else doesn't matter. We're in the dojo, and when we come home, leave everything else outside of the door, we're home. So we didn't really bring any of that type of, one really didn't carry over into the other. I remember as a kid, though, like, I think I tried to test those boundaries a little bit as him being my dad and also teaching. I think, like, he was walking past me, and I think I tried to tickle him or something like that, and I remember him irate. I got sent to the office to sit in there. But I think that's the only time I really remember doing something like that. But,
Yeah, was his discipline harder at home or at the dojo?
Probably home, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
At the dojo, because everybody gets treated the same, I think the only thing that was different for me was just the time and rank. Like, I was again, being a white belt for a year, I think that was the only thing that was really different for me. Other than that, nothing else was really different. But at home, it was pretty strict though still. Homework done. I remember one time I was, as a good example, I wanted to go outside and play for recess. So we had some type of quiz type of thing, and as soon as you were done, you were allowed to go outside. So I went A, B, C, D, E. I just dropped all the things down, and I got done as quick as possible to get out as quick as possible. And at the end of the week, you get all your papers, and I remember seeing it, and I tucked it in the back of it, and my dad saw it. We were in the car, and he goes, "We'll talk when we get home." He saw it, and I knew right then and there I was in some deep crap. I think I was like 9 years old. So it was also during football season too, so that'll come back into play in a second. But he saw the paper, and he goes, "This isn't good enough. Why'd you do this?" And I explained it. I was honest with him, told him I wanted to go outside, and he goes, "Okay." So I went and I came back into my room, and everything was missing except the bed and a book. He goes, "You can earn this back. Get good grades. You can earn all this stuff back." I had no TV. I had no more toys in the room. Everything was gone. I was pulled from football, and I remember him and the coach were getting into it because I was starting on defense, and we had a really big game that week, and he goes, "We need Richard." He goes, he's not gonna, he told the guy, "He's not gonna end up like your son and work at Toys R Us." So I was yanked from football for the week, and I could earn my time back in there, and I earned everything back slowly and surely, and that's a good example, I think, of how he used to do things now. It was under, earning and respect and kind of always maintaining those qualities.
That's good. That's awesome. And I'm, I own a martial arts studio in Los Angeles. I own a karate studio in Los Angeles, and there's other martial arts school owners that are probably going to listen to this at some point. And I know some martial arts school owners have kids who train and go on to be successful like you. But some are probably already young and probably might need some guidance, or maybe even those kids. What's some advice that you would give them from, your perspective?
So I don't think I can give it from the father to the son perspective, but I can definitely give it from the son to a father's type of perspective. Anything that your dad or your mom or your instructor is doing for you is always for the best. And there's never ill will. There's no malice towards it. Sometimes it's, as a kid, like, just those ranks, like, I never understood it as a kid, though. But looking back at it, it was definitely the best thing for me because, getting shot into a black belt, if I first started when I was 4, I would have been a black belt. By the time I was 8, I wouldn't have been able to comprehend, everything nearly as well. And I think that, all the little things, taking time to, let me understand the ranks and understand all the details. It was for the best of me. But as a kid, you don't understand that stuff. So everything that, your dad or your mom is doing for you is always with the best intention. So you don't always have to question everything. I questioned a lot of stuff. Don't always have to question it. Just accept it sometimes, and you'll learn more later on, maybe, than you did at the moment.
Yeah, that's good. Awesome, man. That's good. We got some time. So was it a tough transition for you to leave home? Were you happy to leave home?
So I always wanted enough space where I could do my own thing. But if I needed to come home on a weekend, it wasn't too bad of a trip. So when I went to TCNJ, it was about an hour away. When I was applying for medical school, I applied to dental school, actually. I also applied to a PhD school. And the pecking order was by location, actually, which kind of sounds crazy. So I got put on the wait list for dental school, and I remember them calling me, but I was already at Rowan, which is an hour away. That was the number 1 spot, so that's where I wanted to be. But if for some reason I didn't get into Rowan and I didn't get into a couple other places that were very close, it would have been dentistry, based off of proximity. I always liked them. I always enjoy spending time with them, like, just cracking a beer or, getting some lunch, whatever it was. They came by far more than any other of the parents, my friends' parents did. My dad used to come every Wednesday and get lunch with me when I was in college, which was a great, little getaway to kind of just get away from this constant studying, the constant chemistry, just to, sit down and just take your mind off things. And that definitely was a trip for him. It's an hour trip each way. So he'd kind of shoot his Wednesday in the foot, but I do appreciate that. So yeah, I think that proximity for them was always a good thing. I always miss leaving home when I was, moving for college, going back to school, going to medical school, moving out to my own place now. It's always bittersweet to kind of leave, but it's always nice to know it's only an hour drive to go one way or the other.
All right. So we're going to do like a lightning round of questions.
Cool.
I don't have these pre-chosen, but I have a few in my head, so we're going to go a little fast, all right? Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, favorite song?
Favorite song? Give Me Shelter by Rolling Stones.
Favorite kata?
Super MP.
Super MP. And just a little history for people who don't know about Super MP.
Super MP. It's in plenty of styles. That's what I don't know too much about the history, to be honest. It's definitely one of the most advanced katas given in any style. I don't know. I don't know much more about that though.
Cool. All right. Favorite movie?
Favorite movie?
Martial arts movie.
Oh, favorite martial arts movie? Probably The Karate Kid then.
Karate Kid. The original or
the original?
The
original one.
Okay, all right. You got to be specific when you say it. All right, and then favorite technique.
Favorite technique? Oh, the leg scissor sweep. So a little story behind that. One of my dad's black belts. His name's Darren. He's like 6'5", upwards of 200, well over 200 pounds, probably almost 300 pounds, over 300 maybe. And that was a good memory as a kid. I think I was 4 or 5 years old, and every day, in between class, I would spend 5 minutes trying to knock him over with the scissor sweep. And I was from a white belt all the way up to the black belt every day. Every day that he was there and I was there, scissor sweep him to the ground. Try to do it best I could. And he said one day I got him and it buckled his knee. He said, he goes, whoa. So I got it after a while, but that's definitely my favorite one. You can still use it in jiu-jitsu now, so
yeah,
carries over.
It does. All right. The technique you scored on most in competition?
Reverse punch, by far.
Yeah.
Timing beats everything.
Exactly. Yep. All right. And last one. Let's see. Said favorite band, right?
Favorite band? I don't think I have one. I don't think I have a favorite band. I don't think I do. Maybe the Rolling Stones.
Okay.
Probably just as the answer for you, but
yeah.
Listen to well diverse, I think, music.
Awesome. Did I say favorite movie?
You did. No favorite regular movie?
Regular movie, not karate.
It's probably Step Brothers.
Step Brothers. It's hilarious. I love that movie too. All right. Well, thanks a lot, man. I really appreciate you sitting down with me and taking your time and sharing your life and your story with us. And hopefully, my goal for this is just to motivate other students and other people just to carry on and realize how valuable the martial arts training is and how it impacts them, not just while they're training, but how it impacts them in the future, even if they stop training. So I think you're a great example of that. I admire you for all the hard work that you've been doing and the goals and the things that you've accomplished. And, I'm looking forward to seeing more of your successes, man.
Thank you so much.
All right. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for listening to the Martial Hour, your martial arts fix with Robert Torres. For more content and to stay up to date, visit crescentmoonkarate.com. We'll see you next time.